It starts with 1 second of bad judgment, one tiny decision that feels completely normal. And then in less than 60 seconds, that mistake turns into something you cannot take back. Here's what happens. You're driving home, late, maybe tired, maybe a little distracted. You see the police cruiser tucked against the median. The lights aren't on yet, but you know they saw you. You feel that little drop in your chest, and now you have to make a choice. Most people make the wrong one in the first 3 seconds. They tense up. They slow down too fast. They stare at the rearview mirror. Or worse, they try to think their way out of it while the officer is already walking up. That's where the mistake compounds. By the time the officer says the first sentence, the driver has already signaled fear, guilt, or confusion. Not through words, through micro-movements. Hands moving too much, eyes darting, reaching for the glove box without saying anything first. And that one small mistake, not controlling your first 5 seconds of visibility, changes everything that follows. Pay attention to this part, because what happens next is where a routine stop turns into a search, a citation, or worse. The officer approaches. They don't say hello. They say, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" This is a test. Most people fail it instantly. They say, "I wasn't speeding," or "I only went a little over," or worst of all, they just start talking, explaining, justifying. Here's the problem. The second you start explaining yourself, you have admitted that you did something wrong. You don't need to say the words, "I'm guilty." Your brain does it for you. The officer hears the rush of words, the defensiveness, the tiny crack in your voice, and they know. They don't need proof. They just need your own mouth to give them permission to dig deeper. That's the moment a traffic stop escalates. You'll feel it happen. The officer's tone changes. They step back half a step. They ask to see your registration, then your insurance. Then they shine the light past your face into the back seat. That's the pivot. That's where the stop stops being about a traffic violation and starts being about something else. And here's the part nobody tells you. That one mistake we just talked about, the verbal over-explaining, that's what legally allows them to keep you there longer. Because once you've created reasonable suspicion with your own words, the clock on the stop resets. Now they're not investigating a broken taillight. They're investigating you. Let me show you exactly what that looks like. The wrong scenario. You're sitting in the driver's seat. Your heart is beating too fast. The officer says, "Any reason you're nervous?" And you say, "I'm not nervous. I don't get pulled over a lot. I'm just trying to find my registration. It's in the glove box. Do you want me to get it?" Your voice is too high. You're talking in fragments. You open the glove box before they say yes. Inside, there's an old pocket knife. Nothing illegal. But the officer sees it. Now they ask you to step out. That single action, opening the glove box without permission, just turned a warning into a probable cause search of the vehicle. They don't need a warrant. You gave them the reason. They'll write it down in the report. Driver appeared nervous, reached into closed compartment without direction. Officer observed a weapon. You had a pocket knife. Congratulations. Now you're on the curb for 20 minutes while they go through your trunk. Most people get this wrong because they think the officer is on their side. The officer is not your enemy, but they are also not your friend. They are a professional observer trained to notice signs of deception. And the number one sign of deception is usually nothing. It's over-explaining. It's filling silence with words. It's trying to be helpful in a situation where helpful looks exactly like hiding something. Now the right scenario. This is how you keep it small. The lights come on, you pull over smoothly. Not fast, not jerky. You stop in a well-lit area if you can. You turn off the engine. You put both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, and you wait. That's the secret most people never learn. You wait. You do not reach for your license. You do not open the glove box. You do not unbuckle your seatbelt. You just wait. When the officer approaches, you keep your hands visible. They will say, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And here is the exact phrase you use. Say it calmly, say it slowly. Say this, "I'm not sure, officer." 4 words. That's it. You're not lying. You're not admitting anything. You have simply stated a fact. You are not sure. Now the officer has to tell you. And whatever they say next, you respond with the second exact phrase. "I understand." That's it. I understand. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I didn't realize." Not, "I'll slow down." Just, "I understand." This does something powerful. It signals cooperation without confession. It shows respect without submission. And most importantly, it does not give the officer anything to write down as suspicious. No nervous chatter. No reaching, no explaining. Just 2 hands on the wheel and 2 phrases. If this is helping you understand something most people never learn, subscribe because we break this down in simple, real-world terms every week. This is the kind of information that costs nothing to know and everything to ignore. Now watch how this plays out in real time. The officer takes your license. They go back to their car. This is the waiting period. Most people lose their composure here. They start rehearsing what they'll say. They start getting angry. They start sweating. Don't. Just breathe. You already did everything correctly. The hardest part is already over. When the officer comes back, they have 3 options. A warning, a ticket, or more questions. If they ask more questions, you do not answer them. Not because you're being difficult, because you are legally not required to. Here's the 3rd exact phrase. "Officer, I'd like to remain silent." That is not an admission. That is not obstruction. That is a constitutional right. Say it the same way you would say, I'd like water. Calm, normal, boring. The officer may push back. They may say, if you have nothing to hide, why won't you answer? That's a psychological trap. Do not fall into it. Repeat the phrase, I'd like to remain silent. You are not arguing. You are not explaining. You are simply stating your boundary. Here is the truth most videos won't tell you. Police officers are trained to ask questions until you slip. Not because they're evil, because that is their job. Your job is not to be memorable. Your job is to be uninteresting. A driver who says, I'm not sure, I understand, and I'd like to remain silent, is a driver who gets a ticket at worst and gets sent home at best. A driver who talks, that driver gets a search. That one decision changes everything. Let me take you back to the first 5 seconds. The moment you see the lights, that is the only moment you have real control. After that, the system takes over. But in those 5 seconds, you decide whether this is a 3-minute stop or a 45-minute ordeal. You decide whether you go home frustrated or you go home feeling like something was taken from you. Most people never realize they had that choice. They think the officer decides everything. They think compliance means agreeing to everything. They think silence looks guilty. All of that is wrong. Silence looks calm. Silence looks predictable. Silence looks like someone who knows something that most people don't. And now you know it too. So here's the recap. 1. Hands on the wheel. 2. Don't reach for anything. 3. Say only, I'm not sure, and I understand. 4. If questions continue, say, I'd like to remain silent. That's the whole system. 4 steps. No legal degree required. No memorizing statutes. Just 4 simple things that keep a traffic stop from becoming something it was never supposed to be. Here's what I want you to take away. You are not powerless during a traffic stop. You are just uninformed, and now you're not. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had a traffic stop that started small and then got completely out of control? What was the moment you felt it shift? Let me know in the comments. Because the more stories we share, the more we all understand what actually works and what only feels like it should. Drive safe, stay calm, and remember, the less you say, the more control you keep.